Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AIM on MS&T podcast. I'm your host, Kate, and I'm so glad you have joined us today. If you are new here, let's catch you up. AIM stands for Academia, Industry, and Military, which are the sectors that form the foundation of the modeling, simulation, and training community right here in Central Florida. Together, they make up what is known as Team Orlando, a collaborative partnership driving innovation and mission readiness through MS&T. Each episode, we sit down with leaders and innovators within the MS&T world to talk about what's new, what's next, and why it matters, especially to our Team Orlando community. Whether you're deep in the field or just curious about one of Orlando's biggest industries, second only to the theme parks and hospitality industry, we're here to keep you informed, inspired, and part of the conversation. This episode is brought to you in part by Capital Communications and Consulting, telling your story across all platforms with a clear focus and innovative impact. Whether you want to elevate your message, grow your presence, or connect with the right audience, the C3 team will help bring your story to life. Learn more at mycapitalcommunications.com. Today, our guest is Brigadier General Christine Beeler, Capability Program Executive, Simulation Training Test and Threat, or CPE ST3. Thank you for joining us today. General Beeler, it's great to have you back on the podcast. I think it's been about a year since you were on with us last. For those of our listeners who may have missed it, if you want to go back and listen to General Beeler's previous episode with us, it is episode 9. We will also add the link down below. Now, let's start with the most obvious. General Beeler, I introduced you under a new name. This probably sounds unfamiliar to our regular podcast listeners. Can you please tell us about the new name and why these changes are so important?
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me back. It's been great to be a partner in this community for well over a year now, and I love sharing what's going on because I completely believe that transparency helps us bridge any information gaps that cause problems in the end. I used to be a program executive officer, a PEO.
Okay.
Now I am the capability program executive for a basket of capabilities, which look very similar to the basket of capabilities that the PEO was responsible for in the past. And so under that construct, we're really focusing on being able to make trades across the capabilities, not being locked in to necessarily artificially placed walls in between programs.
Okay.
The change in name is to help the change in mindset of how we want to go forward with acquisitions in the future. The other exciting thing we got coming up is right now we are simulation training and instrumentation. And as we move forward in the future, we're going to change our name from STRI to ST3, Training, Test, and Threat. We think that better describes the breadth of portfolio we support and will give a better understanding to industry of what falls into our capability basket.
Right.
And to our Army partners and our joint partners who they can come to talk about as an entry point into any of that space.
I hear you're getting a new logo soon. Can you talk about the significance of what that new logo will bring?
So when we make a change, we want it to be not only in writing, right? But it needs to be visual. It needs to communicate what we're going to do differently. And it needs to help provide us an emblem that we can all find our space in. And so the new emblem is a shield with an arrow, like a missile coming out of the top of it. And really, the significance is we want to win the fight before it's fought. We want to empower victory through adaptive realism. And, we want the edge of realism to be available for contested environments. And those sound really funky, and I get that. But really, if you think about it, the shield represents our supporting role in building readiness, creating a credible and effective deterrence for defense, and really protecting our national interests. The arrow that's coming up out of that shield is really, again, think about projection, right? We are attacking, we are moving from the foundational work developed while building readiness at home and building that lethality into the contested environment to be ready to dominate. And then if you think about internal to the shield are some interlocking blocks with an interesting color palette. At the top, there's some red blocks. In the middle are some white steel colored blocks. And down along the bottom are some blue blocks. Blue forces, right? We are blue forces. We are training them in the multi-domain environment. And then red forces, we are projecting our power through the red and out into the operational environment. And the reason all of those things are interconnected, all those segments come together, is you need all of those pieces: the simulation, the training community, live, virtual, constructive. The threats got to be right. And then we got to test it all to make sure that it's delivering.
So, with this new name and logo, did your mission change? And how will this name change impact your relationships with other Team Orlando units and the organizations?
So I would say the mission at the end of the day is to deliver live, virtual, constructive ecosystem so that we can train our soldiers anywhere, everywhere, all the time. That's a big vision. Part of that is the synthetic training environment that everybody is very well aware. Part of that is how we do force-on-force training in our live training ecosystem, whether it's a training center, a range, whether it's at home station. And a lot of that is also about the threats that we did working on with our partners in Huntsville. And then how do we combine those activities in test and in training to make sure that what we learn in test, we can bring back into the training environment, and that during training, we can test new capabilities, new doctrine, new changes from experimentation in the force and bring that back to our soldiers. So I would say mission the same. How we're going to do it, that's where the mindset changes.
Right.
And that's where we're going to focus on.
Stepping back to the bigger picture, part of the Army's acquisition reform effort centers around the establishment of Portfolio Acquisition Executive, or PAEs. Can you talk a little bit more about the role of Army PAEs and how they fall in the Army acquisition hierarchy?
Hey, great question, because they're new. So the Portfolio Acquisition Executive, PAE, is a higher level organization and really requirements developer. He gets to do trades between all of the capability executives and enablers that fall down inside his PAE. So we had 12 to 13 PEOs. Those PEOs are now CPEs.
Okay.
Those CPEs have been divided into the 6 PAEs. And then the PAEs will have better capability to make trades between those things. My PAE, Mr. Joe Welch, the PAE for C2 and counter C2, he's got, obviously, CPE STRI, soon to be CPE ST3. He also has the CPE formerly known as C3N, which is now going to be Command Control Infrastructure and Networks, or Information and Networks, along with the previous PEO, IEW&S, which is now going to be Intel and Spectrum Warfare. Same bucket of capabilities, but the ability to look across those different programs and see where there are opportunities to take advantage of capabilities, bring things forward, do experimentation, and understand what is no longer needed because of, fact of life changes in our environment. He's going to be able to see that and be able to make those decisions.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Now, I know it's only February, but looking forward, what are the 2026 priorities and your top focus areas for this coming year? And what do all these changes mean for your current workforce?
So the number one priority is to deliver the products and capabilities that we're on task to deliver.
Right.
But to do that, got a significant amount of change management that we need to do in a way that helps people be less uncomfortable with all of the changes. Knowledge, it's been a very dynamic year. And with that, we have come internal policy changes, process changes. People have retired. New people have come in, And so when we look at all of those changes, that creates an opportunity for us to really focus on the workforce, assure them of the meaningful work that they are doing, how that work fits into the new ecosystem, and how their capabilities are going to, how they're going to thrive and use their capabilities to help us deliver for the Army and for the Joint Force. So those are my top two. And then when it comes to, work product, it's really about making or sharing how our architecture and our ecosystem are really the capability that we're building. And underneath that are the individual products that will either hang as an application, like could be an infrastructure, like for example, out on a range, that's a lot of infrastructure.
Right.
It could be very much in the data layer, because what we're trying to do is capture the data from all of these training events and all these training and test events, bring that back into the Army for analysis to get to trends, to get to experimentation, to get to see if we've actually made an adaptation of our techniques, tactics, and procedures to see how we would fare in a fight against a thinking, knowing enemy, whether that's an equipment piece of, how's that piece of equipment going to fare in that fight? How's the team? How's the Army going to fare in a fight in that space? And that data layer, that's a big difference in how I think people have approached training devices for a long time. Like, it's device centric, but really this is about information centricity from a collection of devices into the Army's repository for analysis and use.
The I in our AIM on MS&T podcast stands for industry, and we have a lot of listeners from local defense contractors. I am sure they're wondering, how does this reorganization and rebranding affect industry in the Orlando area?
I'm sure my shares on LinkedIn and in other forums have kept everybody kind of informed of, what we're looking at in terms of changes, what the department is looking at in terms of changes. I would say the door is open. And if you're pushing on the door and you don't seem to be able to get through to have, like, you're not coming to the you didn't get an invite to the tech exchange, that's a problem. But if you pushed on the door and we gave you an invite and you didn't come, that's a choice. Right. So we are going to continue to have our procurement acquisition lead time meetings. We're going to continue to have in tech exchanges. We're going to continue to support all of the events in our local ecosystem. We're going to continue to be great partners in this space with the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Space Force. None of those things are going to change. The changes might resolve themselves in how we execute the business of the day, how we think about what type of contract we might want to use, how we think about a strategy to go from a lot of development work. I want to buy something commercial off the shelf. And so maybe I put something out on the Army's open solicitation contract website to say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And if you can deliver in this amount of time or in something, like, let's say I need it in 6 months, but you say, well, I can't do 6 months, but I can do 7 months. I'll be like, okay, let's talk. Let's bring it in. Let's see what you can do. And we can commit to, I'll buy X amount from that interaction. The other options are things like CRADAs, right? Zero cost CRADAs. You tell me, you walk in my door and you tell me I can do that for you already.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, okay, let's do a zero cost CRADA. You show me. Or maybe it's a low cost CRADA because you need some access or government information. We can work that out in a CRADA. We can get after testing and seeing how that's going to work. The other piece is this trades in the requirement space. That's going to enable some adaption, some flexibility in how do we get after capability that we need. We may have gone into the development process thinking we knew what the results were going to be and what was going to be able to be delivered, and we may have learned along the way that that's just not going to happen. So how do we pivot? How do we get more adaptability to get after a particular requirement? And the PAE will help us bring that decision to a point where he can have those conversations with the commander of T2COM, so the Training and Transformation Command commander, as well as the leadership in the Army with the Honorable Brent Ingraham, the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology. So that's like a left, that's a right jab and a left hook. Acquisition and requirements, tradeability in one place.
With all that being said about industry, what are the best opportunities and ways industry can engage and do business?
Well, we continue to put things out on, obviously, SAM.gov, right? We want to make sure we share all of those opportunities. We share RFIs, requests for information. So that's one repository. But we post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and on our social media sites. We also have public-facing website, which has a link to it where you can put in your information and request to come in and talk about, you want to show a new product, you've got an idea, that's an opportunity to do so in that space. And we'll give you all those links so that you can share those links with your podcast folks. And then additionally, participation in a lot of the local conferences space, participation in discussion with the training, the Training and Transformation Command. I think those are good opportunities to bring ideas. We also have this new organization called the PIT. So the PIT, right, is the Pathway for Innovation and Technology. They are a top-level organization that's looking at the FUSE program that the Secretary of the Army has put out, which is about bringing venture capital and good ideas together to help solve defense problems.
Okay.
That's the overarching structure. Below that is FUSE. And then you've got GTED, which is the Global Tactical Edge Acquisition Directorate. They are really focused on in the Pacific and in Europe.
Okay.
And then here in the U.S. with the core commands, you've got this joint innovation outpost concept where we're taking all that experimentation happening at the soldier level, at the small unit level, and figuring out if that's good, how do we bring that capability or that idea into the larger acquisition. Last year it was all referred to as transformation in contact or TIC experiments. Now we're giving all that TIC experimentation a way to get into the acquisition system.
Now, in addition to industry, another key MS&T stakeholder in the local area is academia, which is also part of our podcast name. As Orlando's local and largest university, do you see the partnership with UCF continuing?
It's a phenomenal relationship that the Army's had with UCF for a long time in training its modeling and simulation officers. And from a research and technology perspective, we are embedded. And in fact, I think in this building and in some of our other buildings, we are like co-located.
Yeah.
So, our partnership with UCF is huge and has been foundationally underpinning, I think, part of the ecosystem here. But there are a lot of other universities in this and in the area that we also want to partner with. So it's not just UCF. Sorry, UCF. I love you, but we want to take advantage of all of the opportunity. And there are other programs with other academic institutions around the country that UCF also has partnerships with. So I think the ability to use our problem statements as launching points for students in academia, professors in academia, to understand what our problems are, do that research, meaningful research that resolves itself in a product or a capability that helps America, there's nothing better than that. I mean, we get the whole gambit. We get academia, we get individual development, we probably get a new business or a patent or something.
Yeah, it's true.
Space, then that, technology or idea, then, helps America win.
One of the benefits of being co-located is the collaboration of Team Orlando. Can you tell us about some of the recent collaborative efforts between the Army and the other services here?
Our ability to look at what are the training simulation needs of all the services and how do we come together as a joint force to enable training from the joint warfighting community. At the tactical level, I have folks working with our Navy counterparts for our capabilities. So developing our virtual simulation for training mariners. The Army does, in fact, have more watercraft than the Navy, just saying. But the Navy has some phenomenal capability in terms of training large watercraft operations. And so we want to partner with the Navy to do that. Put the right thing in the right place.
Right.
Same thing with our Marine Corps partners, right? Tactics and our doctrine might be a little different based on what the Marines do and what the Army does. But there are many similar things. And so we partner very much on how do we set up ranges. We partner on how do we set up contract activity to do training events. And we partner a lot with, again, virtual training devices. Like we drive the same trucks. We tend to shoot very similar weapons at the aggregate. So anytime we can not spend money twice to develop a product or service then delivers for both forces, I mean, we have an inherent responsibility collectively to not spend the taxpayers' dollars unwisely. And so that's some of the phenomenal things that we've done in the past, we continue to do today, and we look forward to continuing to do in the future. Again, how do you make the power of the PAE, the power of Team Orlando, bringing all of that together? We've seen lots of opportunities to do this.
And finally, we know that ITSEC is happening again in December, and 2026 is not only the conference's 60th anniversary, but it is also an Army year. What does the Army have planned for ITSEC 26, and what should our listeners be looking forward to?
First off, I can't believe it's only been 2 months since we finished ITSEC 2025. However, it does seem like a long time ago. Why? Because we've been involved in the initial planning conferences, setting up what all of the great panels are going to be. We've been looking at all the papers and ideas for papers and the scholarship opportunities that are out there. So I'm very confident that our partnership with the National Training and Simulation Association remains very solid, and we are focusing and really trying to put an Army, go Army flair into this year's event. Clearly, 250, big year for America. 60, big year, ITSEC. So it's got to be special. And I have gotten great commitment from my senior leadership to help deliver an exciting, informative, because it's really about the information exchange.
Yeah.
Informative, and maybe even a little entertaining. ITSEC 2026. I got a great team, and I know my partners in Team Orlando are all going to be very helpful to make sure that we, as a collaboration opportunity, and can get the most out of ITSEC 2026. So, hooah.
With that, I would like to thank Brigadier General Christine Beeler for joining us on here today. That's a wrap on this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Want to stay in the loop on what's happening in the modeling and simulation and Team Orlando communities? Head to teamorlando.org and follow us on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook for all the latest updates and upcoming events. If you're looking to spotlight your organization or share your voice on AIM on MS&T, sponsorship and guest opportunities are available. Contact us. The information will be in the description. Don't forget to follow AIM on MS&T on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. I will talk to you all in the next one. Bye!